It is a beautiful, bright morning at the circuit in Misano. It's 35 degrees in the middle of the day. Not there yet, but the temperature is rising fast as it is in the championship. We're approaching this fourth of the 5 rounds for 2022, with just half a point separating the top two crews. 26, nearly 27 degrees. By the end of this 20-minute qualifying session, it will have carried on rising. It is almost unbearably hot. John Watson, all to play for, but we've looked at pre-qualifying, and this tight, twisty 16-turn circuit remains a happy hunting ground for Audi.
Yes, it's very much the case. We saw that yesterday, top 4 places by Audi's different teams, of course. But nevertheless, there we see the 16 corner. This is a racetrack, 4 kilometres round, 2.5 miles. And yet again, the tracker is setting a new lap record as it goes quicker than I can actually talk my way around, Bruce.
Yeah. Good job done there, John. But what you can see, it's tight, it's twisty, and when we get to the race, of course, the first and second corners come as a blur. They're very tight indeed. But the car's down on the ground. Car 32 is very much at the sharp end of the championship. Team WRT, Charles Weerts will do the first qualifying session. His teammate Dries van Tor the next. Out of the last 6 races on this circuit, this car, this combination, they got their first win together in 2019. They've won 5 of the last 6 races. It's an astonishing record in such a competitive championship.
I think you might say that's consistent performance, both from the 2 drivers and, of course, from WRT Audi, the team that really is the lead team amongst the family of Audi teams that are here. And I know that all the other teams will say, well, they're not the lead team because we win races as well, both the Tempto and Santa Lock Racing. But it is that combination of Charles Weerts and Dries van Tor that is consistently at the front. And a lot of that comes, Bruce, from the superb pit work when it comes to the mandatory pit stop, wheel tire change and driver change. And that is where, if you can't find a way around a competitor on the racetrack, then you've got the options and the opportunities in the pit lane to make up that position, or in fact, maybe in some cases, a number of positions.
Indeed so. Right, looking at Valentino Rossi's car, of course, a man from 2 wheels, now on 4, but already his fans were here first thing this morning. Some here at about 7:30, lining up outside his truck. He's learning as he goes, made a couple of little errors at Zandvoort, but when the racing is on, he gets better and better. And here at the circuit, Marco Simoncelli, named after the late, great motorbike rider, very much a happy hunting ground for bike riders. Let's see if Valentino can do it on 4 wheels.
Well, he knows this racetrack intimately. There you can see some of the fans up there dressed in the yellow with the blue trim. And, I mean, Valentino knows, as I say, the circuit extremely well. He knows it well from 2 wheels. And of course, at one point, this racetrack ran counterclockwise. So it is now running in a clockwise configuration. But of course, on 4 wheels as opposed to being on 2, totally different lines, totally different entry into corners, braking different. You can see Valentino there, the sweat running down his forehead. It is going to be, well, actually, you know what? I feel like a trussed up chicken being put into an Aga oven. That's the kind of temperature we had here yesterday. Every time you moved, you seemed to just get hotter and hotter.
You did. We just saw Lorenzo Petresi on board the number 12 Tracer by Car Collection Audi. Why is he racing this weekend? Well, that's because Luca Giotto, who normally shares that with Matteo Drudi, had a bit of a cold, tested, realised he was COVID positive, so stepped aside. Lorenzo races for the team, only 16, just reiterate that, in the Endurance Series, but he's come across, and of course for him, he doesn't have a lot of racing experience, but he has very good mentor in his father, Ricardo.
Indeed, Ricardo, great experience, obviously, from Formula One all the way back from 1978 up until he stepped aside from Formula One. So, like father, like son, but it's a big step up from doing your national championships or even running at some of the lower echelons in this championship. Eddie Cheever Jr., or Eddie Cheever, we call him these days. He's not really any longer a junior. So he'll be in the 93 Sky Tempesta Mercedes-Benz. And the team have been really... they haven't fully gotten to grips with the Mercedes-AMG GT3R. Fantastic car, we know, because it wins races. So it's been a major learning curve, and they're having to learn on the hoof. They had that setback at a test post the Manicure sprint round when the car was heavily damaged. They had a replacement chassis, and that's the car that they've been running subsequently.
Yeah, but it must be said, well, looking at the championship points, look, just half a point between them, 74.5 versus 74. And Boguslavski and Marcello are in a Mercedes, which doesn't seem to be the car to have here yesterday or at all. That's down in 15th place after pre-qualifying. So real struggle also clearly for any other teams running. McLaren, so you can see them in the background of the shot going through. They've been looking pretty good, and we saw flashes of speed from Vincent Abril and Dennis Lint a few weeks ago at Zandvoort on a track that has certain similarities in terms of its format with this one.
The only big difference is, of course, where are the sand dunes? Well, there aren't any. That's the answer, because Misano is about 3 kilometres in from the coast, the Adriatic Riviera. And of course, there are no sand dunes on the Adriatic Riviera. But it is a lovely racetrack. It's flat. You've got lots of wide open spaces, lots of space actually for track abuse, limit abuses. And here coming down into turn 14.
Well, this is LP Racing, one of 2 new crews this weekend. We've got Lamborghinis in the Pro Cup from Imperiale Racing, which is Alberto Di Folco, and a long-standing fan of this series and star in this series, the Spanish racer Albert Costa. They're in 663, but the 888 crew, LP Racing, with Matteo Di Giusto on board, and Jonathan Cecotto, who spends a lot of time racing Lamborghinis regularly in the Super Trofeo. They've come aboard for this weekend and lay down a time. And it's Matteo Di Giusto who's in this, and they're running in the Silver Cup class.
Yeah, and just an interesting entry into turn 1, almost 4 wheels off the racetrack now. Again, we'll have to wait and see, just again coming through the exit of turn 3 up to 4 and 5, just how much the track limit abuse will be tolerated by the race director. And it has always been an issue here in Misano, because all the curbing is flat, there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to accommodate both MotoGP and World Superbikes, because you don't want curbing as the traditional car race circuit curbing would have been, where you've got these sort of banana curbs for a motorcycle or a rider. Those are absolutely awful.
And the most notable corner where we watch them year in, year out, because it's super spectacular, is turn 16, the final corner. It's about a 75-degree left-hander onto the start-finish straight. You go over the white line, and then we've had the carpet, the green layer beyond, being peeled up in the past, and it's a real rodeo ride for anybody then getting back onto the circuit. But the drivers know, the stewards will be watching. Some will transgress because they're trying to steal an inch, but others will transgress because they simply can't contain their cars on the circuit. Unfortunate there for Matteo Di Giusto, the end of his lap being blocked, others on their out lap, and you can see that LP Racing Lamborghini having to back off. Di Giusto stepping up from GT4, he was racing in the Italian GT Championship, so it's a big step up in power. Everybody blocking everyone.
Well, they're just backing one another up, all looking for that clear opportunity. So it's only a 20-minute session, and you've got how many teams will run just one set of new tyres? Some may have run just to go out this morning to do a sighting lap. The tyres they concluded that they're running yesterday on. So Nicholas Baird has gone quickest right now, 1:36. But that's 4.5, just under 5 seconds. Now Delacour, 21, and the Ferrari has gone to under 34 points. So the times are tumbling more or less as the cars come across start-finish line, as you would expect.
As you certainly would, and what would be a respectable time. Yesterday, the best time set by the Panis and Niederhauser Santalok Audi, 1:31.7 seconds. And suddenly, V. Rossi to the top. He was early out. He's done a 1 minute at 34.4. So he's 3/10 to the good over Ugo Delacour. Things will change, but that's something for the 46 fans, the Valle fans, to be waving their flags.
And already at Di Folco, he has gone now quickest, 1:32.5, significantly 1.8 seconds quicker than Valentino's previous lap. Now Jim Pla jumps up to the top, almost 0.2 of a second faster, and it's just Aurelien Panis. The times are literally, as I mentioned, changing as cars come across start-finish line. And qualifying, well, for me, qualifying is one of the most exciting parts of the weekend, because you're seeing the cars being pushed to their very limits.
Now we've got a Mercedes on the top of the pile. That's Jim Pla. That may be a rare thing. You can see the drivers wrestling their cars back onto the surface. The dynamic Porsche bouncing around. But it's the moment. Jim Pla from Aurelien Panis and Simon Gachet. Vincent Abril fourth for McLaren. A couple more quick times coming through. Look to another one from Thomas Neubauer. He's down the order in 12th, but he's got a purple sector in the second sector. His Mercedes should be vaulting up the order.
Lorenzo Petresi got blocked coming into turn 16. He's gone 6th. He was, so but he's got 7th quickest. The times literally, the space of talking about it have changed. So Petresi got blocked in the entry into turn 16 as we go back to Charles Verts, but Aurelien Panis and the Audi up purple in sector 1, personal best sector 2 by a significant margin. Neubauer, Thomas Neubauer in the Audi, the number 30 Audi, he's gone quickest, 32.08. Aurelien Panis is second, so I would expect Aurelien Panis to maybe improve, but we see Charles Verts goes second quickest. Thomas Neubauer still quickest overall.
Very, very tight, just 7/100ths of a second down on Thomas Neubauer. Both racing for the same team. Team WRT have got 4 Audis here and 2 of them right at the top. And Valentino Rossi, having been top as a quicker times have come through, he's tumbled to 13th, and a new name at the top. You're quite right, John. Aurelian Panis. Wow, 0.084. Very, very close. 0.15 a second covers Panis, Neubauer and Wirtz at the top of the table. But guess what? Wirtz is going faster still in number 32.
So we've got an Audi 123 then. The first of the Lamborghinis, the 663 Imperiale Sport Car Service, to give the entrance this full title. So good run by Alberto Di Falco.
Yeah, he was Lamborghini European Pro-Am champion back in 2014. He's largely been racing Lamborghinis, but Thomas Neubauer really starting to shift that middle sector. He was top, he got knocked back by Neubauer. This is his fight back, and while he's doing that, Charles Wirtz is going faster still, but now he's backed off.
Yeah, I mean, having gone purple in the middle sector, now backing off, clearly he saw traffic, he didn't want to get that involved, so he's saving as much as possible. The set of tyres is on. We've got 13 minutes of this session remaining, so right now it's an Audi 1 through to 5, Di Falco being the next up in the Lamborghini, then Pierre-Alexandre Jean and the Ferrari, because that's the car that's leading, dominating the Silver Cup. They could actually walk away the champions in Silver Cup if they win here on both Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, nearly 30 points clear of the Attempto crew of Acker and Scholl. Charles Wirtz just waiting to cross the line, stays in 30, back right off at the end of the lap, but he was even Stevens through the first 2 sectors. So we've got 27 cars here this weekend, and at the moment down in 27th place is Louis Shields in the AF Corsa Ferrari.
The reason we're saying drivers backing off in that 3rd sector is they're catching up to a train of cars who are all backing each other up. So rather than running up and becoming an addition to the train, he just backed out of it, saving the rubber, the Pirelli tire, and then starting all over again and hoping that when he gets to this time on the 3rd sector, it will be actually clear he will be able to complete a lap.
Well, the top 3, Gachet, Panis and Neubauer, all backing off top 4. In fact, Charles Wirtz likewise, because Simon Gachet's gone top. That's the big change. He's done a 1 minute 31.997 seconds. He's just 6/100ths of a second faster than Panis. So really, really impressive. That's Tracer by Car Collection. Of course, the sister car driven by the 16-year-old Lorenzo Petresi. He's got to pick his way up the order. We saw him trying to set a time early on, but he's got a lot to learn. Last year, his only season out of karts was in Formula 4, racing on his home ground in Italy. But it's hot out there. It's tight out there. It's a typical Misano Summer Series race. Through turn 16, riding over the start-finish line, looking for changes. Simon Gachet, he's going faster still. He's on provisional pole by 6/1000ths of a second and pressing on. But it's the traffic up ahead. We were riding there with Eddie Cheever Jr. We have a spinner. It's car 54, one of the 2 dynamic motorsport Porsches, and it's Adrian Delina, who's had one of those typical Misano spins, a little loop around, no damage done, except to his tyres, of course.
Looking further down, the car that's in contention for the championship in the Pro category, the 89 Mercedes Timo Boguslawski, now dropped down to 11th position, and again, it's almost a mirror of what we saw in qualifying in Zandvoort a fortnight ago, where Boguslawski was unable to match the times of his illustrious teammate. So a bad start right now for the 89, and it'll take either a brand new set of rubber on that Mercedes to drag it further up the field, and they cannot afford to let Charles Wirtz, who's now gone quickest overall, 131.7. But of course the time that they achieved last night, the 25 Sandalock Racing Audi Patrick Niederhauser, he did a 131.6. Now, temperatures probably in the evening were about similar to where they are, maybe a bit warmer.
A bit higher, definitely.
Okay, so the times, there's a bit more scope for a further improvement.
Well,
Charles
talk about
Wirtz,
further improvement.
Yeah.
He's on provisional pole by just under 0.2 of a second from Simon Gachet, but Charles Wirtz, 1 purple sector. That was good. Let's do another. Exactly the same. Nearly 1/10 of a second gain in sector 1 and in sector 2. That could get him round in a 131.5. But what can he do in the final sequence of corners? It's very, very tricky at the end of the lap. Still some distance to go, but his mark, 1 minute 31.745, looking super strong. Through the final corner, not using too much curb. That's very good indeed. Will he improve his mark? Waiting for that time to come onto the board.
131.651.
He took another 1/10 of a second. He lost a little bit in that 3rd and final sector, having gained nearly 2/10.
First car in qualifying to beat the best time set last night, so Charles Wirtz has got that provisional pole. Still 9 and a bit minutes of the session remaining. Simon Gachet 0.2 of a second away, and still it's a lockout 1 to 5 for Audi. And again, the next best team manufacturer is the Lamborghini of Alberto Di Falco.
Right, into the pits, Valentino Rossi in 16th place overall. But almost all the field in the pits. But obviously Bogoslawski is one we expect to come in and put on new tyres. He's only 12th, and bear in mind he's a championship challenger. And if he started in 12th, finished in 12th, 0 points will go on the board. And the arch rival is Charvet. He's at the top of the table. So he's, you know, in exactly the right place to be. And talk to any driver, John, at the circuit, Marco Simoncelli, they're all saying qualifying is even more important. It's such a narrow circuit. There are moments where passing can be made, but you really need to exude a huge amount of pressure.
I mean, we saw this in Zandvoort. We've seen it pretty much in all the sprint events we attend. Because the field is so competitive, the times are so close, it's very difficult how do you find a way around a car that's within 100th of a second of you? So virtually identical performance across the entire, here a 27-car field. What you can do clearly is make it up in the pit stops. That's where, you know, other teams we've seen previously, WRT, maybe on occasions, depending very much on the Akodas ASP Mercedes team, especially the 89 car. But you don't want to have to do the hard yards in the pit lane. You want to do them on the racetrack. Absolutely
so. Just noting that a little message at the bottom of our timing screen saying driver order car number 88 under investigation. In my list, the driver who should be in that was Jules Gounon. Jim Pla should have been doing tomorrow's qualifying session. Maybe they failed to declare that they were swapping them around. Maybe Jules had another puncture on the way to the circuit as he did yesterday, and therefore got a reason for missing the driver briefing. Normally it's a big fine.
Probably finding all the nails or whatever caused. He certainly missed the driver briefing yesterday because he did get a puncture. That's the explanation that we were given. And in fact, there was evidence because somebody took a photograph of Jules jacking up his said rental car. I mean, you would have thought a racing driver might have his co-driver or whoever was with him, but the co-driver was taking the photographs and Jules was doing the wheel change.
Multitasking, good Mark. Sky Tempesta Mercedes, one of many cars coming in for a fresh set of rubber. And Lorenzo Patrese has just suddenly flown up to 5th place. Very clever. He waited until the 3/4 of the field were in the pits, got the clear track and shifted up to 5th place. And it's Audis all the way up. Vincent Abril now starting to make moves. But who's the driver? He's in 9th. Bear in mind, this is one of the JP Motorsport McLarens, and that is a very, very good opening sector. The track is all his.
Yeah, it is, and we saw a very good qualifying from Vincent Abril and Dennis Lind as Abril on board. This car got on to the front row of the grid in Zandvoort. The pace, certainly in a single lap, is there. Didn't quite follow through my personal best in the middle sector, so while it's not purple, it's still better than being that kind of yellow. So Vincent Abril coming into the final sector to complete his, well, will this lap put this McLaren, will it breach the top 6, which is now dominated by Audis?
Well, here's the question. It ought to with those sector times through the final corner now, not too wide. The car deserves an extra prize for looking brilliant in its black and gold livery. He's 9th. What's he going to jump up to? He goes first. That's a fabulous lap by a third of a second. So Charvet is in the pits. He knows what he's got to do now. The target is moving. Fabulous lap.
That was a great lap by Vincent Abril, and it just consolidates the view that we had certainly in Zandvoort and even earlier in the season, that the McLaren in a single lap does have ultimate pace. Where they seem to maybe lose out is in the course of, certainly in a 1-hour sprint event, not being able to maintain. Maybe it's a little bit of tire degradation, don't really know, but certainly in Zandvoort the car did what we've just seen now, other than he was on the front row of the grid, but with the second quickest lap now, provisionally, and he's even on his
an even faster lap,
slowing lap there, but it's still 0.06 of a second up. So he's backed out of it. He's decided to give the tyre a bit of a break.
Well, that was a bit unfortunate for the Mercedes behind him, who let him by, thinking it was another fast lap, and then got a face full of the McLaren as Vincent backed off. So he's done his qualifying run and proved he could have gone faster still. But what is the state of the tyres? He clearly used them very, very well indeed. So his target time, 1:31.301. Alberto Di Falco has been really impressive. Top Lamborghini driver here. Of course, he knows the circuit very, very well indeed. But he's in 8th place overall. See if he can pick up the pace. Who else is picking up the pace? Thomas Neubauer in 5th, the number 30 Audi, and also, as we said, Di Falco further down the order. Giorgio Roda going well on Italian home ground, but he's not in the top 10 yet. He's pressing hard.
Well, all we have on our timing and scoring screens are green sector times, indicating personal improvement. What we're looking for is purple, and the only purple on the screen was from Vincent Abril when he was deciding what to do on that following lap, which is for sector 1, and that still stands at 23.8. So the next best to that is around about Simon Gachet, 23.9. So the pace McLaren found, very impressive, and the DeValco comes across start-finish line.
Well, the margin is big, John. We expect a tenth of a second at most. It's 0.35 of a second, his margin over Charles Weerts, who in turn is just under 3/10 clear of Simon Gachet. But it's a McLaren ahead of a cluster of 6 Audis. But Weerts has got the new rubber on, as has everyone else. They're picking up, but they've got to pick up the pace. Just 3 minutes and 45 seconds till the checkered flag will fall. And you feel for Boguslawski. He's got his new rubber on, he's improved his pace, but not as much as the cars ahead. He's down in 13th place. His teammate Raffaele Marciello, the Swiss racer, will be feeling very, very nervous indeed. Any tenth of a second gain will have a big advantage, but at the moment the pace is with the Audis.
Quickest silver car is in 5th place. That's Thomas Neubar. Car he shares with Benjamin Goethe. So there's a big, big battle going on in that silver category with principally with the Ferrari, which is leading by 29.5 or 29.5 points over the rest of the competition.
I'm just interested to see what Vincent Abril is doing. He's still circulating a little bit off the pace. Is he just trying to cool his tyres, and go for one final lap? Because otherwise, if not, why is he out there? Might as well just report back to the pits.
Well, he's running out of time. It's just under 3 minutes remaining. So slow down, give the tyre a chance. Oh, Charles Weerts, middle sector, purple.
It won't be enough to get him to the top unless he's brilliant through in the third and final sector. The very twisty run, you go down to effectively a hairpin at turn 14 through a couple of kinks, and he has backed out. So maybe he thought there was a car that was up in front to trouble him. I would have thought he could have kept going, but anyhow, now he's clearly accelerating hard through turn 16, trying to get the perfect exit to carry as much speed down the very short start-finish straight past the pits and into turn 1. Has he got enough space in front of him? I think he has, but what else is changing? Charles Weerts on that lap was going to improve, but Lorenzo Patrese just got into second place. Oh, the glory of youth. 16-year-old Lorenzo Patrese knows this team from the 2 endurance rounds so far. He's come across at the last minute and is reveling. If he can start from the front row, that will be the story of the year to me.
It'll certainly be impressive. I mean, to have Ricardo, his father, Lorenzo, the son, I mean, outstanding performance. And I mean, Tresor by Car Collection must be delighted to have Lorenzo Patrese behind the wheel of their number 12 car. Thomas Neubar has further improved. That's the leading or the quickest of the so Patrese is seeing further improvement in time, but no change in position.
Right,
so,
Pierre-Alexandre Jean has just given the best run for Ferrari up into 6th place, chasing the Silver Cup class, still behind Thomas Neubar. Where else the changes come? Timo Boguslawski is now wide awake. He's gone from 13th up to 7th, but better still, his middle sector is fastest of all. Can the 8 and 9 Mercedes keep it tidy? Cross the final curbing, back to the start-finish line. Target time, Vincent Abril 131.3. Boguslawski goes into second place. Jim Plar and the Mercedes goes into third. So suddenly it's McLaren, Mercedes, and Audi domination shattered for now. But Charles Weerts is waving the flag. He's going faster still. He's fallen to 5th behind Patrese. Where will he end up, John?
But what's critical is that Mercedes have got themselves onto the provisional front row of the grid, and their principal challenger, the number 32 Audi, has gone quickest, as I'm about to say, on 5th overall. But Charles Weerts has rescued what was going to be maybe a bit of a shock to find themselves on the 3rd row of the grid now on the pole position provisionally. 40 seconds remaining. I don't know who's got anything left in the tank to come back and challenge that, but a 1:31.268, a very emphatic time from Charles Weerts.
Well, that was really impressive, because bear in mind the previous lap he was on a good middle sector, which should have augmented. We've got a spin from Valentino Rossi. He's showing all the sponsors' names as he rotates around. No damage done. Those tyres won't be good. He's down in 18th place overall. He gave it a shot. And a typical place to spin is when you get to the end of the kickback straight, get to turn 13, and then around he went.
The problem is, once you lose rear adhesion, there's not very much you're going to be able to do to rescue it. So he did a very pretty 360-degree spin. Probably got good marks from the Russian judge for that. But it's a set of tyres that has now probably been flat spotted sufficiently to need them, if nothing else, to be rebalanced as we watch these cars come across. Number 12. So Lorenzo Patrese, who had been up to 2nd quickest, has found himself demoted down to 5th. Don't know how much he's got left in the tank. He's had a personal best in Sector 1, nothing Sector 2. He could maybe drag a couple of positions remaining, maybe onto the 2nd row of the grid from 3rd. Wait and see what happens to Lorenzo Patrese.
He falls a place because Alberto Di Falco, the 663 Imperiale Lamborghini, came from nowhere, way down the order to take 5th place. But Patrese, it's still a remarkable run for him. Those ahead of him with the checkered flag, having fallen, have dropped back. But for Charles Weerts, he showed great bravery, was setting a good lap, wasn't going to be enough for pole, realised that, got the message from the pits, backed off, got track space again, and he had one final roll of the dice. That's the mark of the man. He really, really made it work.
But Bruce, I'll maybe give you an insight into why I think that Charles Weerts had the capacity to do that. And it's not because he's physically fit, it's not because he's a great racing driver, it's because he's got a brain and he used it. And he waited and waited, and he found the opportunity, the ideal opportunity, to then go out and do a wheel perfect lap to give him, okay, it's only 0.33 of a second ahead of Vincent Abril, who again did a stunning lap, 8 minutes earlier when track conditions were probably not a huge amount different. So domination again from WRT to take that pole position. But the grid around a McLaren, then Berger-Slawski in the 89 Mercedes, the principal challenger to the 32 Audi, in strong position on the second row of the grid, backed up by the sister car of Jim Pla.
Well, that was a really, really interesting qualifying session. It went forwards and backwards. Of course, the drivers were trying to get heat in their tyres, heat out of the cockpit if they possibly could. There is a little bit of a breeze. We get more in the afternoon. But there, at the end, by 33 thousandths of a second, that's enough. It could be 1 thousandth of a second. That matters. It's Charles Weerts from Vincent Abril. But the good to see for the second race running, we've got McLaren right in the mix. And Mercedes, we really had fears for their competitiveness here. Didn't think it was their sort of circuit. But there they are with Timo Bogoslawski and Jim Pla in 3rd and 4th position. Still a question mark. Driver order for car 88. That's under investigation. So maybe Jim Pla and Jules Gounon have run in the wrong order. Lorenzo Patrese, though, 5th place overall in his Sprint Series debut in his 2nd season of car racing for the 16-year-old, and showing he's just as good as anybody in the Audi camp. That was remarkable, John.
Yes, I'm stumbling for words. You know, 16, you can't imagine. Imagine when we were 16, Bruce, we were still at school.
Yes. In detention, John?
Occasionally. Only if you were caught, of course. I mean,
Exactly.
the key, if you were one of the children that went to a public school, which was maybe a state school, or if you were privileged and went to a private school, the key was never to get caught.
But nobody could catch Charles Weerts, that was for sure. He left it late, but he really put down the marker. So for WRT, it was all looking very good. Then suddenly it wasn't looking so good with Vincent Abril on provisional pole, but Charles Weerts struck right at the end. Silver Cup honours go to Thomas Neubauer in 7th place overall, and top Pro-Am runner is Miguel Ramos in one of the Garage 59 McLarens, sharing that with Dean McDonald, so the Portuguese driver doing another good job. Great to have a few new names in the pot, but Riccardo Patrese, I would have thought a top 10 would have been a good qualifying position, but what do I know? 5th overall. So nice clean session, just the one spin that we saw, John, for Valentino Rossi, probably just as he was waving to his fans in the grandstands in the turn 13, turn 14 complex. But the temperatures will continue to rise. This might be the coolest conditions they get to drive in. In fact, no, tomorrow morning they're qualifying for tomorrow's race is at 9 o'clock. This was a 9:30 start, but they know full well that either race they will compete in, 1 hour long, will be very, very hot indeed. They can go back to the garages, cool down now, and for the less experienced drivers, they might try and work out how they could have handled their tyres differerly. But WRT kept a cool hand on the tiller and a cool head, and Charles Weerts did exactly what he needed to do. But again, Mercedes were nowhere, but Acodis ASP thought about it. Jim Pla showed his hand a little bit. Timo Bogoslawski was troubled. He was down 13th, maybe falling to 15th place, but when it counted, he got his 2nd set of tyres and really made them work. But he is a 1/4 of a second down on the ultimate pace. That will vex him, but he got up to 3rd place. And as the championship challenger, he needs to be on those front couple of rows. So it's job done for Acodis ASP. But let's go down to Team WRT. Charles Weerts has taken pole, but let's hear from his teammate from Dries van Tor.
Dries obviously watching on there with Charles from the pit box, but that was a fantastic time set right at the end. Challenging session?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky to put your lap together here, especially with all the, I mean, it's easy to make a mistake and then to get a track limit, but Charles did a great job, did a clean lap, 2 clean laps actually on both of his sets, so yeah, he did a good job, so happy.
Looks like you might have some challenge from the McLaren and the Lamborghini.
Yeah, I mean, the McLaren has been fast also in Zandvoort already, but I think they're struggling more on tires, especially with this heat and also with their turbos. I think it's not the best, but I think we've got a good race car, we've got good long run pace, so I think we should be okay.
Thank you very much. Have a great race.
Thank you.
Just notes, thank you very much, Gemma. Just noticing a couple of drivers who had quick times have dropped down the order, presumably for that old thing, John, track limits. We had the 888 Lamborghini nearer the front. That's fallen down to the tail. But they will be watched, not just in qualifying, when it comes to the race as well. There will be penalties for those who continue to transgress. Interesting, too, to hear from Dries there just how he considers it's so easy to make a mistake around the 16-turn circuit, Marco Simoncelli. But looking back at the highlights, it wasn't cool, calm, collected. It was really very warm. It's the Sky Tempesta Mercedes, Eddie Cheever. Already before he went out, Valentino Rossi having to wipe the sweat from his brow, but he had a task to do. Out he went, set some quick times early on, but then the times really, really started to tumble. And great challenges, particularly from the Audi crews, showing their hands very well indeed. Nicolas Bert going well early on. He would end up just outside the top 10, though, as the faster drivers went faster and faster. Jim Pla started to show that Mercedes maybe could have a say in things. But then it really was a story of Vincent Abril for the second race running in the JP Motorsport McLaren, really picking up the pace. And he worked his way, not near the top, to the top of the charts. But for many people, the championship challenger, Timo Bogoslawski, seemed to be leaving it late. He couldn't get his first set of tyres to work. Came in, fitted a second set, the Acodis ASP 89 Mercedes. Here he is coming for the fresh rubber, and it really, really worked for him. And a little spin, just actually catching the tail of another car almost, and rotating to avoid it. That was Valentino Rossi. He ended up outside the top 10. But Charles Weerts, also in Audi, also from Team WRT, did everything he needed to do, and eventually he took the top spot by just 0.03 of a second.